Hello beautiful people! Today I'm gonna talk about writing a feature film for the first time. We'll do the classic structure where I talk about my experience of writing a feature film for the first time 4 years ago, what happened and what I learned. Warning, my first screenplay was about drugs, so watch at your own risk and don't do drugs. So I think I told you guys before, but I did my bachelor in chemical and biological engineering before doing my master's in screenwriting. 1 year left to graduating and I started questioning my purpose in life. And that definitely wasn't engineering. Then I found my journals from when I was 10 years old, and turns out I was writing screenplays back then. Not like in actual screenwriting format, but handwritten screenplays. They were basically cartoon shows. That made me think, maybe I'm meant to be a screenwriter. During that last summer break of college when I was studying chemical and biological engineering, I came to Los Angeles for a summer workshop for screenwriting, just to see if it was really for me. This script that I'm holding right here, which is 54 pages long because I stopped writing in midpoint, but this is what I wrote during that workshop. As you can guess from this, there are two major struggles of screenwriting. One, starting, two, finishing. Actually sitting down and starting to write a screenplay is the first challenge you'll be facing. First of all, there are so many steps that you have to take before writing a screenplay. There are so many tools out there to help you figure out your story before writing the screenplay. I learned 3-act structure, and Oldie from the industry taught me 4-act structure. Someone used 28 points, then someone else used beat sheet, treatment, outline, like Snyder's beat sheet, plot points, and everyone has different opinions on this. So the most important thing to do is to figure out what works best for you. But this is not gonna happen by just writing one screenplay. I wrote 5 feature films and 2 TV shows, and now I kinda know what works for me. I'll be talking about what works best for me and all of that in another video, but this video is about my first feature film script. So for the screenplay, I used 28 points and 4-act structure that I don't use anymore because they're very confusing and yeah, you just don't need them. But basically, I'll tell you about 4-act structure. Think of 3-act structure, separated in the middle, and here's your 4-act structure. So nothing different, just a perspective shift. But let's go back to what I was saying. I had this amazing idea for a feature film, just as all of us have when we first decide to write a screenplay. My idea was that I was gonna write a feature film that was gonna be like female Breaking Bad. I started working on the screenplay and I realized that one of the most important steps in screenwriting is to take other people's opinions and feedback, because the story is in your head. So you have no idea how it's gonna sound to other people. And you might have some logical mistakes that they might point out, or they might ask some questions, and that might just make you brainstorm a little bit more. That's why we have script readers, script coverage writers, feedback services, all that stuff. Back to what I was saying. I actually wanted to write this feature film very differently from Breaking Bad, even though that was my initial pitch for it. I wanted my main character to create the best-selling drug out there, but then they realized that people die on the 4th dose. And the film is called The 4th Dose. But there were still so many details that I had to figure out about my story before writing the screenplay. So I used some character sheets, beat sheet, 28 point, plot points, but the basic concept was a chemical engineer designs a drug that kills people on the 4th dose. Now, who is my character and why is she making drugs? It's really important to figure out your character and make him or her as realistic as possible with wants, need, goal, and flaw. The audience follows the main character for 2 hours in a movie, so they have to be interesting and they have to be 3-dimensional. There were so many ideas I had about who she was and why she chose that path, but finally I wanted to settle on something that was close to me. So I made her age around 20s and she was studying chemical engineering. Finally, I settled on why she was going for that path. But it's very basic and not very logical, because that's what happens when you write a screenplay for the first time. So the main character's little sister gets kidnapped by a gang and they want her to cook a drug for them. And with that, I started figuring out my plot points. This is a bit tricky because sometimes we get stuck in a small concept that we can't expand to make it a feature film. Or sometimes we expand so much that it becomes a TV show. So it's really important to find the balance. I used 28 points, which was something that I didn't like and I don't use anymore. That made me so stuck in my own concept that I wasn't able to explore the story as much as I wanted to. I really don't like this screenplay, okay? It doesn't represent my work at all, but I'm talking about it in this video because now you guys know that I believe in growing and learning from our experiences. Now what I use is 3-act structure with plot points and Blake Snyder's beat sheet. Those screenwriting tools help me keep track of my story, hit the plot points well, but also expand enough, but not too much that it gets out of hand. I'll talk about this more in another video. So with the 4th dose, I decided that the main character's sister gets kidnapped, and that's the inciting incident. Then she decides to save her by joining this gang and cooking the new drug for them, and that's when Act 2 starts. In midpoint, this drug starts killing people on the 4th dose, and I don't know the rest because I didn't write it in the screenplay. But let's do a little exercise right now that might actually help you guys. If I was rewriting the screenplay, I would change the whole thing, but right now let's keep something same and figure out the rest of the plot points. Concept. A chemical engineer makes a drug that kills people on the 4th dose. Main character. An ordinary chemical engineering student's little sister gets kidnapped and they threaten her to join the gang, so she joins the gang to make a brand new drug for them. She tries to find ways to save the sister, but the gang always wins. She makes the drug and it becomes best-selling, so they let go of her sister. The drug kills people on the 4th dose. She has to now escape and hide from the gang because they're after her. They find her and capture both her and her sister. She somehow fights them and saves her sister. And happily ever after. This is like the worst movie idea ever, but you guys get the plot points and structure, right? At this point, my advice to you guys is to just start writing the screenplay after figuring out the plot points and get the first draft out of the way so that you can start rewriting, and that's what's gonna make it better. Your first draft is probably not gonna be the script that you market. Even though you figured out the plot points and the characters in the first draft, you realize so much more about the story as you write the screenplay. And then comes the second big struggle of screenwriting, which is finishing the first draft. As you can see here, I did not finish the first draft. And I don't even want to come back to it because I hate it right now. And this idea used to make me so excited. I have no other scripts that I didn't finish because this one taught me that if I stop writing the first draft, then I would never go back to it because I would never feel the same. So my last advice to you guys is to finish writing the first draft, because if you don't, then you don't know what's gonna happen. Even if you're bored, even if the story and the characters are changing, just keep writing. Tell yourself that you have to write at least 1 to 2 pages every day and just get through this. Once you finish the first draft and take a little break from it and then go back to it, and while reading it, you realize so much more about the screenplay. And then you can send it out to people if you want their opinion on it, and their feedback will make you realize that the story has so much potential in it, and if you rewrite it, it's gonna be so much better. That's it for today. I hope this was helpful. I loved and hated doing this video because I wanted to avoid my first screenplay. I actually thought I deleted it, but then I found it in one of my hard drives. Now I'm gonna delete it. Just kidding.